Hey guys, how are you doing? I greet you to another sponsored SHADOWVERSE video, and this one will be the last before the new expansion STARFORGED Legend is released. We're only a couple of hours away from the latest content drop for the game, so a good reason to check out some of the new silver cards that will be introduced with this set. I already did some videos on gold and legendary cards for STARFORGED Legend. If you're interested in those videos as well, just look in the video description for some links. The new set looks very slick to me, and I'm looking forward to fool around with the new stuff that we are getting. So I hope you will enjoy the silver cards I want to highlight today. We will start with a Shadowcraft spell, which will probably be a great card in many Shadow decks for the foreseeable future. Ratha Curse is a 3 play point spell that allows you to sacrifice one of your own creatures to choose and destroy one of your opponent ones. That would be a powerful effect in any class, but of course in Shadowcraft especially because of all the last words effects. Similar destruction cards are already out in the wild. In the end, it will always come down to the fine print. While a card like Necro Assassin looks relatively similar, plus you get a body, the addition of the word random in a text makes the effect inherently weaker than the curse card. The curse allows you to pick both the followers that are getting destroyed, and of course the less randomness you're facing, the better. Everybody knows that feeling when you're taking a coin flip and the random destruction effect is sitting a small skeleton instead of a Bahamut, for example. That is a blast from the past, and with 3 play points it is definitely a fair card that allows you to make some good combinations in Shadowcraft as well. Just one thing that you need to remember is that you are not allowed to use the card when not both requirements are fulfilled. So it is crucial to see at least one follower on each board side. Neither is it working to only kill an opponent, nor is it working to only kill one of your own units. Nonetheless, of course, the card is very good overall and a card you should consider when you build a Shadowcraft deck with the next expansion. Our second card of the day is also another powerful spell, the Snarling Chains of the Bloodcraft class. As usual for a Bloodcraft card, it involves some sort of self-destruction, so you shouldn't be surprised to see a damage of 1 on both leaders. Furthermore, you will deal 3 damage to an enemy follower for the price of 2 play points. All in all, that is some very solid stats for the price you have to pay, and can be used both on aggro as well as in more late game oriented builds. 3 damage for 2 falls in line with a lot of other spells in this category, so it is not really coming as a surprise. Bloodcraft already has a lot of tools that can deal damage, so the real question is if they want to play the card on top of the other spells as well. I would say it depends on how much damage you're willing to take to yourself. The biggest contender for the Snarling Chain is probably the Razor Claw, which is doing the same amount of damage for 2 play points, but is also able to hit the opponent while giving yourself 2 damage instead of 1. Any deck that is interested to reduce the life points of your opponent is definitely willing to take 2 damage in the face, when they can then also hit the opponent harder for 3. The Snarling Chain is only able to target followers. On the other hand, you are always guaranteed to get at least 1 point of damage to both leaders, while you will deal 0 damage with a Razor Claw if you are forced to use it as a trade spell against followers. Both cards have advantages over each other in specific spots, so I would expect to see some testing going around when the expansion launches with both cards. Our next card represents the Swordcraft class and is an excellent new follower for it. Coolin is a small rush unit that can be used early on in the game as a trade option for 2 damage, or later as an enhanced version for 6, when the card will get Bane on top of the rush for only 1 turn, plus he can't be damaged in that turn as well. That means that the enhanced version is at least good for an instant trade, but also that he will save a follower for an additional attack or trade on the following turn. Both the Bane and the anti-damage effect are unfortunately only lasting for 1 turn, otherwise he would be of course an OP card, but nonetheless Coolin will definitely earn you enough value to make it worthwhile to play it. He might be played in mid-range Swordcraft decks as well, but the biggest grip for him might be more in some of the grindier late game oriented builds, where you're probably very happy for any sort of extra destruction. Would the card be a storm unit instead of a rush unit, you would see him all over the place. Luckily that is not the case, and we are looking at an interesting but also balanced card that will see some decent play. Following now is one of a kind unique card called the Mystic Ring, a neutral spell that will be accessible to every class in the game. This card might be a sleeper hit for the expansion when all is said and done, but I do not want to jump into too many early conclusions as well. For 1 play point, the card allows you to banish a card in your hand, then shuffle a copy of the card back into your deck and draws you 1 card. That is very specific effect that will not be useful for every deck, but the decks that are interested in such a card will be very happy to see it, I guess. First of all, the first operation field for the ring is of course if you want to get rid of a high cost card early and draw something else instead. That is especially true for a bunch of combo decks which might not necessarily want some specific cards early in the hand. That is also true if you have specific cards in multiple copies in your hand that are not working that decently together at all. Examples for such events would be if you have multiple Darias in your hand. Normally you would then discard the remaining Darias, but the ring would allow you to get another one in your deck, which is improving the win rate quite a bit. Same could be said if you play a discard dragon deck and you are looking at multiple altered fates in your hand. Again, having the option to get those later in the game is very crucial for a successful game. Another option would be to get rid of small tokens like Forestcraft is producing a lot. If you have then for example 4 or 5 fairies in your hand, you might want to be looking for something stronger instead, so another good idea to use a ring on it. Furthermore, it is also a cheap spell, so perfectly for any spell boost Runecraft deck and maybe a good addition for some D-shift action. There are of course more interesting ideas to try out the ring, and I do think that with future sets this one might prove even more useful. So you should give it a try definitely. For the last card I want to show you today, I decided to pick another simple and cheap yet probably effective spell. The Elf Song is of course a Forestcraft spell for 2 play points that is producing on the one hand more fairies to your hand, but also has the option to increase the stats on all your units on the board by +1/+1. For that you need to have played at least 2 other cards early on this turn, so it is not a card you're normally dropping that happily on turn 2, but instead coming a few turns later when your board is already a bit more crowded and you have the points to play multiple cards. You can of course always just play him on curve on turn 2, but then it is just a simple, more expensive fairy circle, a card you could play on turn 1 to also get 2 fairies. You're probably not a fan of that as well, so saving the card for a bunch of smaller fairies on the board is normally the way to go. This allows you to create some extra burst potential or surprisingly better trade value that hopefully gets your opponent on the wrong foot. In other card games, additional stats are always a powerful tool, so I would expect that the Elf Song can provide some similar power level, despite that the effect is not ongoing and only for the units that you have already on the board. And I personally really like the artwork, so I will give it a try for sure. And with that, I'm at the end of today's video. I hope you are looking forward for the next expansion as well. It is nearly there and my rupees are stacked up for some nice pack openings. I will then see you on Friday with a new deck fresh from the STARFORGED Legend Roads. Until then, have a great day and see you soon.